Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. Today is January 21st, 2019, episode 23, and today we are going to be finishing up with Scadrial for a while as we conclude our discussion of Mistborn Secret History. Once again, spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning. There's going to be spoilers this episode for just about everything in the Cosmere. We're not holding anything back, so... But again, thanks for joining us. I am Bill, and I am joined, as always, by my cosmic co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
And again, for those of you who do listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube, we are recording this live. We record each episode live on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at www.twitch.tv/innkeeperstable. We've got a live chat running, which is a great way for y'all to interact with us, let us know, just sort of give us some, live feedback, basically, and, sometimes you might have a question that we'll respond to at the time. So we'd love to have you join us and take an active part of the show. So, and once again, there will be spoilers. This episode, anything goes. Any of Brandon's books that take place in the Cosmere are fair game. That means Elantris, Mistborn, Warbreaker, Stormlight, White Sand, and any of the Cosmere-based short stories that he's written. Basically anything that's in our Canon Unbounded. It's all fair game today. Next week, we're going to be finally, going back to sort of our normal one book and sticking to
that
non-spoilers outside of that book. But for this episode, we're in Secret History. The lid's off the.
It says something about Secret History with how short it is that we're taking 3 episodes to cover it.
Yeah.
All the other books only got 2 in the Mistborn series.
Right. And to be fair, we're kind of doing the same thing with this that we did with Stormlight, where we had 3 episodes that followed the main plot and then 1 episode that went for all the gooey bits in between. This is the gooey bits episode.
Difference is Stormlight's big enough if you drop it, you're going to hurt a small dog.
Only if you're surrounded by small dogs.
But you wouldn't want to drop the book anyway, right?
No.
I would go to that island.
Small Dog Island.
Small dogs.
Oh, there is a cat island in Japan.
There's a bunny island there, too.
Oh.
I want to go to Bunny Island.
The more details I hear about Japan, the more I'm convinced that it is an anime.
Didn't you realize? No, Jordan, anime are just documentaries.
Yeah.
Those are live-action films from Japan.
I knew Gurren Lagann would come true. Anyway.
So, yeah, again, this is sort of the Gooey Bits episode where we're looking at all the little details in between and also looking at where Secret History fits in. Because one of the things that Secret History did is, yes, it answered a lot of questions, but it raised a whole lot more. Shiny ghost people who are drinking glowing potion aside. And that's one of the things that we actually kind of know about.
Yeah.
A little bit.
But we've also each sort of been looking at some of the Word of Brandon stuff that we're taking a look at. So we're just going to sort of kind of wing it this episode, I feel like. Just, throw up things that, not vomit, but throw out things that
the preposition's important there.
Yeah.
I caught myself. One of the things you learn in as an English major is editing. So I edited. Yes, I went back and I changed it and I fixed it. It's okay.
I see. I learned that from comic books. We call that retconning, which is another thing we'll bring up today.
All right, so let's just dive on in. All right, first off, let's just is there anything that first off jumped out to you that just said, "Oh, we learned something that we didn't know before"? Like, I mean, yes, there's a whole lot, but just anything that stands out to you.
Remind me real quick of the chronology. I just want to make sure. This was before or after Words of Radiance?
Before.
I mean, when Brandon posted it.
After.
After Words of Radiance. Okay. Sorry. So we had looked into the cognitive realm before, and we
looked into the cognitive realm in Way of Kings.
Yeah, I thought because that's Shallan goes.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, but I didn't understand what the
stick.
crap we were looking at.
Stick.
That was Words of Radiance.
What was Words of Radiance?
I am a stick.
Oh, that
yes,
was stick.
I am a stick was Words of Radiance, but Shallan stepped into the cognitive realm,
but
almost drowned.
I had no clue what we were looking at in Way of Kings.
Yeah, to the point where the Way of Kings actually came with a bookmark included. It was like a giant one.
Yeah, the really big
and
one.
on one side there was a map of Roshar, and you flip it over. On the other side, it was a map of Shadesmar.
Oh. I need to look at that again.
And so, and it refers to all these different seas, but all of the seas are where, again, the land masses are.
So maybe we start there with the cognitive realm and traversing it. First thing we learned is it's not all beads.
Right. That was interesting to me because, on Roshar, it is all, it's beads. It's just these masses of spherical representations of things. It's almost like the concept of everything has a spirit, except in the cognitive realm, everything has a cognitive aspect.
Chip. It's like a chip. That's what they were called, right? It's chips?
Spheres.
Where am I getting chips from, then?
Chips are the smallest denomination of sphere.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
But yeah, and so which makes sense for a world where that's what contains Stormlight, whereas in Scadrial, where people associate the mysticism of all that with mist, well, it makes sense.
It's this ever-present thing.
Everything's misty, yeah.
It makes sense. We then got the explanation, sort of why, we've discussed this before, why the waterways are solid and land is not. And it's just all goes to how people think about it. It's all due to the waterways being borders and things you can't cross. They think of it as more solid.
Well, and it's also, it's not just the way they think of it. It's people don't cross it, and so it's not really thought about and affected by as many people. Which Brandon has mentioned, that's kind of the reason that they're able to traverse space through the cognitive realm, because nobody ever goes to space, and so there's not really any sort of cognitive representation there.
And it's not just that no one even goes to space, it's also because no one is in space. There was a word of Brandon that I brought up, that because in my head the question for me was, is it because no one's going through space, or is it because no one thinks about space, or is it because no one's in there? And someone asked Brandon, I can't remember where this was from, I should have copy and pasted that part, but the person asked, my question was, in the cognitive realm, with the gaps between the planets, ... and then Brandon had misunderstood the question from earlier. He goes, oh, will the gap between the planets get larger as more people travel between it, as people start traveling through space? So, barring things like space stations, there's going to be so few minds in between that I don't expect space to become larger. Because of that, I don't expect it to be a factor, except barring there will be possibilities of certain regions popping up.
Like if there was a space station or something, I could see
like if there's a space station, or maybe even if there's like a trade route that is constantly traveled.
Yeah, I kind of thought that when we were talking about the water, that if there was like a certain trade route, I could see that being less solid,
a little bit soupy,
a little bit more soupy in the cognitive realm.
Well, and that's the thing that's interesting, is you can walk from one planet to another because there's nothing between it. And so and so that's the thing that was interesting. When Kelsier, as he starts running until he starts feeling the tug of, it's not quite gravity, but it's kind of like gravity. The further...
It's connection.
Yeah, the further he gets away from what is Scadrial. Now, this is the part that I have to try and wrap my head around. The thing is, Scadrial is a spheroid. And so
how does he achieve escape velocity?
Well, it's not the escape velocity, it's more at what point is he on the boundary of Scadrial? And I think, just sort of as I'm sort of trying to map this out in my head, is the fact that once you start hitting oceans, there's not a lot, like, at one point he, like, sees fish in the water, and he, like, touches one, and he sees, like, it's a whale. But the whale doesn't think of itself as this massive creature, so it's the small fish in the cognitive realm.
I'd forgotten that.
But the concept of borders and stuff like that, there's nothing out there. And so...
Well, I feel like it essentially, Kelsier literally went off the edge of the map.
Exactly. And so even though it's a spheroid in the cognitive realm, I almost view the cognitive realm as a 2D map. Because...
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense in any other way, because we as creatures don't think of things truly in geographical senses in 3-dimensional terms.
Right.
We live on a 2-dimensional plane for all intents and purposes. And so I found that interesting, that he got to the border of Cell and Scadrial, or what we assume.
Well, we don't know that it's Cell.
Yeah. Well, we got to the border of Scadrial. I'm assuming it's somewhere a borderland of some point, where things start, because he can feel the tug away, and it's just interesting to me that he was able to walk off a sphere essentially,
Which is weird.
Yeah. Hey, there's a band called Walk Off the Earth. He did it. He did it in real life. Well, in fake real life. Anyway.
At a certain point, you start saying things in Kelsier's life, and it starts sounding like a Dos Equis commercial for the most interesting man on Scadrial.
I don't often leave home, but when I do, I go off-world.
He once got killed just to see how it feels.
And to start a revolution.
Oh, gosh. Wow. But yeah, but the thing that's interesting is, so Kelsier is able to leave the cognitive realm, but we also kind of find out at least one way that these world hoppers are going back and forth from one planet to the other. Because we actually see Hoid do it. It's one of the first times we actually see how somebody step in. And that's one of the things that's interesting. Again, spoiler alert's already up, but at the very, very end of Oathbringer, or not, of Oathbringer, where we see Hoid pick up the sprint, and he says the first oath. There's a specific reason that he did that, and Brandon's mentioned, because it was a cryptic. Well, what can Lightweavers do? One of the things we see Shallan do, they can step directly into the cognitive realm.
Oh.
Yeah, because he has
true.
not very little, but we already know he has some form of illusions that he can already do.
He has, well, Brandon's referred to it as Yolan light weaving.
Yeah.
So it's basically a different form of light weaving. But he didn't need that. What he needed was the ability to step into the cognitive realm. Because now he doesn't have to find a perpendicularity.
Yeah, he can
go.
go.
He just goes whoop, and he's there. And that's very, very helpful for somebody who wants to go from world to world to world to world. Because right now, basically what he's having to do is he's having to find some shard pool, step through it, and pop out the other side.
Yeah, go the other way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely easier that way than, because it's clear that it's dangerous, because while we don't know what it was like at Ruin's perpendicularity, we do know it was easier than to go through Preservation, since that's where ironically Ruin is. And we see that it's hard to traverse the cognitive realm of Scadrial because it's all mist, and so you need a boat, or in this case, a corpse named Spanky.
Poor Spanky.
And he coats something on his oar.
I don't think it's specifically Scadrial, because they have the same sort of issues in Roshar.
But yeah,
Except when they're on.
you can. There's other ways to traverse it than it's one of. They all have issues. It's more of an issue. I think in Scadrial, because of the misty nature of it, I am. This is maybe the physicist in me. I imagine it's easier to traverse through beads than it is through mist. As far as constructing some sort of craft.
Except that. Well, I don't know.
Have you been in a ball pit recently? Because that's what it makes me think of is doing
Exactly.
is doing that, and that would be hard.
Except it's like a mix between a ball pit and quicksand.
Yeah.
But
Can't say I've experienced the latter, though.
Yeah, Godless Rebel makes an interesting point in chat. He says moving into Shadesmar would be easier had he become an Elsecaller. That said, honestly, what kind of sprint is going to bond to Hoid?
Yeah,
it's going to be a cryptid. Like it's just it's going to be a cryptid.
We don't know a ton about the ink spren. That's what Yesna has, correct? But they seem to be a very rigid lot.
Yes.
Which would not fit with Hoid.
Hoid is not...
while the cryptids adore lies, and Hoid is filled and wrapped in lies.
What's the name of his book?
The Liar of Partnell, yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually a very good point. I hadn't even made that connection, but that's... Yeah, exactly.
But no,
that's the first one in the
He
Dragonsteel
covers something
series.
on his oar. Like, he takes something and puts it on his oar in order to get it through. And I think I don't have a book in front of me. Wasn't it silvery?
It could have been.
I don't remember that detail.
I don't remember.
Do you guys have the books near you at all? I don't know.
I have it near me, but
first
I have to find the book itself. And
I can put it on I can look it up on my phone, but it's going to be a bit.
Okay. But
because I don't have a physical copy. I just have a digital one.
The theory I've seen put around is that might be sort of a similar substance as to what the Irie were having to drink. That it might be either some form of connection juice or some form of investiture that basically it can push against the cognitive mist.
Now, connection juice that could work because the one of the Elantris magic is specifically tied to the location and being connected to Cell, and so that actually makes sense that they're drinking this juice that again keeps them connected to Cell. Because if that juice runs out, if they're no longer connected to Cell, their magic. Well, I don't know. Because technically we see Galadon and Roshar, so I don't know exactly.
So I would say we don't see them doing any magic as far as Cellish magic.
Right.
And we do see Galadon, and we do see the other Elantrian we saw was the Lighthouse Keeper.
Yes.
But his skin ain't glowing, and now could that be an illusion? Yeah, it could be an illusion, but when you're already in the cognitive realm, what's the point of hiding a detail like that? My working theory is that because they're not near it, whatever the magic that causes the glowing is, it's diminished. And so it might be one of those things where their connection to the door is clearly being severed, but it might have changed their spirit web in enough of a material way that it doesn't stop the immortality. That might be more of a spirit web thing than it is a door thing.
That's true. So, speaking of Cell, that's one of the big questions that came up to me. Is so we know that it's very, very dangerous to go through the cognitive realm on Cell, because that's where Dominion and Devotion are. That's where the door is. That's where they've been. They're sort of jammed up, silly putty conglomeration personalities are right now, and it's just this rushing with energy. So using a perpendicularity there is very, very dangerous. So how did the Irie get off of Cell?
Well, the two answers to that are either they were prepared for a very insane,
rough ride,
rough storm.
Because I think that's how Hoid got there. Because didn't we see him in the 10th anniversary edition, didn't he step through the pool and that's...
Well, he stepped
Yeah.
into the pool. I don't know if he stepped through it.
Okay.
I don't
Wait.
remember. It's been long enough. I don't remember.
That's the one book I have. I can double check on that in a second. But
So I did find the
okay.
thing about Hoid. So he does, it's something glowing, and he pours it on
Okay.
the orb.
Okay.
So it's just glowing, and it's not sure if Kelsier's not sure if it's naturally radiant or if it's made of metal. So it's glowing.
that's right, because Kelsier can't see the difference between those two things.
Maybe it's mercury.
So
Yeah.
we don't know.
But so the one way is they were prepared when they stepped through the shard pool. The other way is that they have stepped through it long before the Rayod.
Riyadh.
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 Or Riod.
Riod. Yeah, Riod. That's
The
correct.
thing, the big
Because
event.
it's all-
happened.
it's all long vowels.
Yeah, that's right. Riod.
Yeah. Riod.
So they could just have not gotten off. Like, Irie is apparently means ancient.
It means the
And-
ancient ones.
Yeah. And so, let's say you predated the Riod, that would make you quite ancient.
Well, no, the Riod was only like 40 years.
But this is this takes place a good number of years after that
That's
as well,
true.
doesn't it?
But the thing is, like, they predated the Riod, I think, by a significant amount.
Yeah, they were
Like,
ancient
already
before the
ancient.
Riod.
Yeah, so they've been around for a while.
Which I don't remember where the word of Brandon for that is, but
I've posted it. I think it's actually in the show notes from last week or 2 weeks
okay.
ago.
But
So,
yeah, it's
if not, I'll find it and put it in this week's show
they're
notes.
very old. Now the question comes:
Yeah.
what does being off-world for the Riod do to you?
Exactly. Like, how did they... Brandon said the words, they weathered the Riod. But they were off-world when it happened. I don't know what that means.
Yeah. I mean, so if you work from, and this is again off my work and the theory that I just came up with, that the immortality is sort of woven into your spirit web, and it's not like it's a side effect. It's not the cause of the door. It's just a side effect of the door doing this to you. I could see them maybe suffering very similarly to the Elantrians did, where suddenly they don't have all their,
They're lepers.
Yeah.
Zombie lepers.
they have all the leper stuff that makes them never heal from their wounds, but at the same time they're far enough away from Elantris that I would think that the healing of their wounds thing wouldn't apply anyway. It's
Right.
one of those.
Or
It's one
maybe
of those.
what they're drinking helps keep them from having that problem.
Ooh, that's a
did.
good point. Because they're drinking something, and it's something silvery.
Yeah.
And it bears mentioning that the orb also was filled with a silvery thing that the community has called connection juice. And Brandon
And
has
that definitely was connection juice, because
Yeah.
it was essentially liquid connection.
but
Yeah.
he has said in one of the word of Brandon's that silver light stuff, not because it's silver light. He means the city of silver light.
Yeah,
which,
silver, right.
That's somewhere in the cognitive realm. And
Silverlight, I believe, actually is specifically in Shadesmar on Roshar.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes, because they go there.
I thought they went to
That's
a
where-
different city.
Is that Oathbringer?
That's where the
they go
lighthouse
Oathbringer?
was.
The lighthouse?
That's
is
where the
in
lighthouse-
Silverlight?
I thought, maybe I'm getting stuff
I know.
mixed up.
I don't
I'll just
know.
look up.
I thought
I'll just
that
look
the
at
ci-
Silverlight real quick.
I thought
We
that the
have
city they went
computers.
to was Silverlight.
I don't
Now,
remember.
in all fairness, I will admit, Oathbringer is probably the book I'm the least familiar with, just because
It's
for
still
some
so new.
reason it hasn't sunk in yet. And I've only read it the one time. And of course, the time I read it, I was rushing through it and just like, I need to read this, I need to finish this, I need to see what's going on, and so I haven't had a chance to actually
Go and find all the little
let it
things later.
sink in.
So the
Yeah.
copper mine just says the cognitive realm.
Okay.
It doesn't specify a location in the cognitive realm.
Okay, I thought it was on Roshar, but maybe I'm wrong. Just because I don't think that they left Roshar, and I thought that was Silverlight that they went to.
Yeah, I
Maybe
don't
I'm wrong.
think it is, and the reason I don't think it is, I swear it had a different name. Like, I thought it had
might be
some
silver
name, like,
something.
and this isn't the name, and I'm going to hate myself for this, like, Fortitude, or it had some concept name for the city.
I could have sworn it was like Solitude, but I don't know for sure.
Oh, maybe
I might be getting that somewhere else.
Okay, maybe that's
Shades.
it.
Oh, dang it, this is not going to cause me to just go into... I have to know what this is.
Jordan, focus.
You focus.
Eyes on me.
Start talking.
Eyes on
no,
me.
You got this.
Stay on target.
No, you guys got the rest of this,
No,
this
Jordan.
entire podcast.
Step away from the wiki.
No, the wiki's my friend now. I like it.
Oh, gosh. Amy,
So
we've
speaking-
lost him.
So speaking of the orb, since we've already lost Jordan, I tried to make it. And
Show
for
us.
For the audio listeners, this is going to sound so boring. But I got a little plastic Christmas orb, and I tried to use some frosting type glass frosting stuff like that, and my camera's crappy, so it's not going to see it. And I needed to I need to figure out how I can get like a silvery glowy liquid to go in there, and then I can like hold it, and then
you crack open a glow stick.
a glow.
And pour it
Oh,
inside.
that would be very limited timing, but yeah. So
It'd last for a little while.
yeah, so I'm still hoping to make this look more impressive, but it's frosted
Cool.
glass paint on the inside, which was a pain to do with a brush because it
And
doesn't
then
go
you
in.
need like a giant dagger to pretend to smash it with.
We've got giant daggers in my house. Don't worry.
Then you smash it with a dagger.
Or to save on postage.
You just be an Elks caller and travel to Shadesmar.
Exactly.
It'll be great.
Okay.
This made sense.
So, another thing that we've learned a few things about Kelsier. So Brandon hinted at this before, that Kelsier had held the power at some point. He actually hinted at that before Secret History ever came, like for years before it came out. Because remember, Secret History was basically a 10-year project. And so so he'd been hinting at that. But we actually sort of saw, okay, this is when Kelsier took up the entire power of preservation and essentially was preservation for a time. Which means that Kelsier is a splinter of infinity. You know, Kelsier would be a splinter, except for the fact that he doesn't have a body at the time, so maybe he's not.
He's more splintered.
But they were, because they referred to, or not a splinter, a sliver.
Yes.
They referred to the Lord Ruler as the sliver of infinity, and that was because he had ascended. Kelsier did that, but again, he wasn't able to access the full power because he was only tied to 2 realms.
Yeah.
So maybe he's not a sliver. I still don't know enough about slivers, and there's slivers and there's splinters and there's shards and there's all sorts of things. So, but but he did hold not just a part, like a portion of it. He held the full thing.
I remember when I read that after getting through the trilogy, when I first started delving into Words of Brandon and stuff. And even the biggest Kelsier fanboy that I am, I was like, held on to preservation. Okay, I think Kelsier is pretty cool. How did he manage that? Like, that made no sense to me. Which, given how little we still know, even though we just read Secret History, I feel like it was an adequate explanation, especially for how short it was. But it's one of those it's one of those interesting things when you talk about expanding your soul, that Kelsier had the chance to do it, and again goes back to the Dos Equis thing. But he's lived quite a life and an even more interesting afterlife somehow.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, Amy, did you that's the thing. I only knew this because of Bill. Did you know this anytime after reading the original trilogy?
No, it totally caught me off guard. I'm not as good at looking at Word of Brandon stuff. I'm still not great about doing it because I'm chasing children. But so yeah, it totally was mind blowing, and I did not pick up on a lot of stuff because it was too much of a what?
Sorry,
What's just
sorry,
happening?
I got distracted.
So-
What are you? Which
We're talking about the fact that I didn't know this before.
which part?
The
Kel had held.
Kelsier had
Okay.
the sliver and all that stuff.
Sorry about that.
So no, you're good.
But yeah, that was one of the things that you delve into all the stuff, and Brandon was being very, very cagey about it, but he had mentioned that Kel held it for a time and didn't really say anything specific about what he meant by that, but it was out there.
Well, and it was so confusing because it's like, well, how long's the time? Since he died? Was it dying that somehow let him have to do
seconds?
that? What?
Yeah.
What let him do? Is it because he wants to survive? And that's sort of preservation-ish. Even though there's apparently a survival shard somewhere. But anyway, that's a super word of Brandon that he has not delved on. It's one of the shards that we know about. He says there's some shard somewhere that's trying to just hide and survive. And so, immediately they're like, survive. Kelsier! But,
It should be yours.
No,
because he doesn't try to hide and survive.
No, that's true.
I actually saw a theory that at some point Kelsier actually has somehow become another shard of Adonalsium, and he is survival. No headcanon, Jordan.
No, sorry. I'm now thinking of something that was really interesting on the Cosmere subreddit where people asked, what's the worst shard vessel combinations? And they just did Kaladin/Kelsier combined with Odium. And the thought was, no nobility would ever live ever again.
We're dead. We're all dead.
If there's one thing Kaladin and Kelsier could agree on, it's that anyone with noble blood probably should just die.
Not anyone with noble blood, because Kel had noble blood.
Yeah, but Kelsier was really good at ignoring that fact.
Selective choices there.
Yeah.
If there's any other talent Kelsier was good at, it was
anybody who
himself.
is part of noble society.
But he was part of noble society for a long time, so...
But then he left it, so...
Yeah, Kelsier's great at deluding himself. It's one of his better traits. Oh, yes. Because it's also what sort of let him do this entire thing, because you have to be pretty self-delusionary to sit there...
self-assured that, yeah.
To go look at Ruin, see him in all his Lovecraftian glory, and be like, yeah, let's fight that.
Let's do this.
Like, he looked into the Abyss, and
the Abyss
then said...
back.
Yeah, the Abyss looked back, and then Kelsier said, nope. Okay, let's go back and take another look at it.
It took him a while to convince himself to do it again.
Yeah.
It freaked him out pretty bad.
Kelsier's just like, I'm going to poke it.
See what happens.
There's Hoid on the other side. Don't you poke it. Gotta poke it. Don't you poke it.
Did you just poke Cthulhu?
I had nothing else to do.
Of course, aside from holding the full power of a god, since he let go of that, Kelsier has been plotting. He's been hanging out with Spook.
Mm-hmm.
What could go wrong? Last time he hung out with Spook, everything went great.
Now, one thing that was interesting, I've seen a lot of theories popping up that Kel is actually in Spook's body and he's held there with a hemalurgic spike. Brandon has specifically come out and said, Peter actually is the one who came out and said it is not Spook.
You might need to clarify who Peter is.
Peter Alstrom, Brandon's personal assistant, was in a Reddit sometime in the past few weeks, and people were asking about the hemalurgy chart
table?
And the table, and they said they were trying to figure out who wrote it, sort of what we were speculating about last time. Mm-hmm. And Peter said, this is what a certain group of people know about hemalurgy at a certain point in time on Scadrial. And in parentheses, he said, not Chris.
I'm wondering if it's the set.
So.
Because they were studying hemalurgy.
Yeah.
Or it may not have been group. It's like, this is what certain people. So
if it was a group, I could see it being the set or the Khandra.
But the thing is, it could just as easily be what Jordan's speculation was, is Kelsier and Spook.
Yeah.
So, basically, we don't know. We just know it's not Chris.
We don't know.
We're just all filling out those little clue charts you do in elementary school where you're like, it's not someone with blue eyes. Okay, cross everyone down this line.
No Guess Who. We're not
They're
playing
not
Guess
wearing
Who.
a red dress. They're not this. I haven't done one of those in ages. And I'm okay with that. My husband
yeah.
did one on a game recently, or a year or two ago, and he was like having to do it on paper to keep it all straight, to figure out a clue to open a door or something like that. And I was just like, "Oh, you were on your own. I don't even." I was like, I don't want to try and figure that out.
I do think it's just yeah. All right, so what sorts of questions have popped up though? What are like, because again, we've gotten a lot of answers, and yet at the end of the book, you're still incredibly frustrated.
Well,
There's still
I mean, you guys tell me. I got done with third book, Era 2.
Hero of Ages.
Era 2.
No. Bands of Morning.
Yes, I got done with Bands of Morning. He says survive, and it's like, all right, this is going to be the story you want. I'm like, yes, I'm going to find out how Caledon and Kelsier became the sovereign. Read the book.
Nothing.
The word sovereign never shows up in the book.
Right.
And I'm just like, what the... I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved having the story, and it answers a lot of questions that I forgot that I had because it had been so long since I had read Era 1. At the same time, I'm like, Brandon, you didn't explain anything that I thought you were going to explain.
Well, it's because he's not writing this book because he's planning to explain things. He's writing this book now because he's finally revealed that Kelsier's alive.
We all knew in our hearts Kelsier was alive because you just can't kill something that awesome.
Jordan, stop preaching the cult of the survivor.
I will preach the cult of the survivor like I'm Demu, okay?
Oh, dear.
Although I think I have to have a French accent for that, so...
Demo.
Demu.
If that's the case, then it's Kelsier and Va, and we're not doing that.
Ugh. Yeah.
And Sazed, apparently. In world, it's Sazed. Out of world,
in my heart, it's Sazed for me.
Yeah, and that's how Brandon pronounces it himself.
It's an interesting question people have brought up to him, and it is an interesting question to bring up to the creator. And it's like, well, wait, it's clearly all French. How do you say it? I say Kelsier, and it's like, why even bother with the French then?
Because in character it would be.
Well, Brandon's just like, I'm not French, I'm American.
You don't expect me to say it that way, no.
We apologize to all our French and French Canadians who say Kelsier,
Yes.
but you're wrong.
Well, no, it's funny. I speak some Japanese, but I'll still say when I'm just saying an English sentence, I'll say karaoke, even though it's karaoke in Japanese. But like when I'm saying in English, it feels really weird to say karaoke. So that's a small example of me doing something similar.
Woot.
Yay!
Another Japanese word. Woot.
That's
Wait,
Japanese? What?
I don't think so. All right. No, so the one that the question that's stuck out to me, and I'm still trying to figure out, is why was Hoid surprised that Kelsier could hurt him?
Oh, that's
and
right.
that he could hurt Kelsier? Because there's a story there, and it's not one that Brandon's telling us anytime soon. And so
I think he's told us a little bit.
What do you mean?
Well, so we have the legend that Rock told us about
The trickster god who couldn't
harm anything.
Right.
And there's a lot of similar. Like I'd have to go look at that specific. And this is for the record.
But is there an explanation of why?
We don't. I can't remember the full detail. I have to go over it again. But it says the other gods bound him in some way. I'm getting the verbiage all wrong because again, it's been a long time since I've read it. But it sounds to me that it might be part of some agreement he made with the original 16.
Okay.
I don't know what. Some people have put a theory out there very recently. I'd have to find the specific thread that was on Cosmere. Someone's threw out the idea that they may have put this binding on Hoid long before they became gods, and they were preparing him to take up the Shard of Odium. No, Odium specifically, because if you want someone to be the Shard of Hatred, you would want them to not be able to harm anything. And then either it didn't work, or Hoid backed out, or they decided it would be a problem.
Well, we've heard that Hoid specifically refused to take up a shard.
Yeah, and so that was a theory someone put out there. I kind of like it. It makes some sense. That said,
Possibly.
who knows? Like,
Yeah.
but it's clear that he's somehow bound, and it's also clear that as fun as Kelsier has being the guy who gets around technical rules all the time, clearly he was on the wrong end of not technically being a thing, and so Hoid could beat him up. And it was clear that Hoid wasn't so much like, oh, I gotta beat up this guy. It was more like, I gotta beat up something.
Yep. Well, and he even mentions it afterwards.
It's like, wow, that was therapeutic.
Yeah, there are centuries of pent-up aggression that he lets out there.
Oh, yeah.
And look, how many people have more punchable faces than Kelsier? Like, okay, Sadius clearly, maybe Strath. I don't have the full stack list yet, but I like Kelsier, but, he does need to get punched every once in a while.
You can only poke so many people before you get hit.
A lot of people, when I first read this book, it was right around the time when Firefly became like this cult hit.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's dream casting for Kelsier had been Nathan Fillion. It was just popping up all over the place.
I hadn't seen that.
And you know what? Nathan Fillion's got a punchable face.
Yeah, he does. That stupid
Like,
perfect
he's
jawline.
He's a likable guy, but sometimes you're just like, he kind of needs to be hit. And he would probably agree. Yeah, I should get punched every once in a while.
A likable guy who knows he's charming is about as bad as a kid that knows it's cute.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's not a kid. And
Yeah.
so you don't
feel a
feel
little better
bad
about
about
doing that. Yeah.
But yeah. So there was one thing that I was thinking that was really, really interesting. When Kelsier's talking to Chris, so this is a segue into a completely different question that came up to my mind.
Okay.
When Kelsier's talking to Chris and Naj, she gives a little bit of background, and she refers to the 16 people who became vessels at the Shattering as the first who ascended. Now, this is before Sazed picks up, the 2 shards. So, are there others who ascended? I mean, yes, the Lord Ruler had ascended by this point. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, just the phrase, the first who ascended, that indicates that there are others.
It also makes me wonder, since the Irie, whatever, I
Irie.
can't say that, Irie, since they know what they're supposed to do to pick up Preservation's shard, makes it likely that someone has done it before. Because
Right,
if it hadn't been done before, then they'd be going, well, we'll try this, but we don't know for sure that it'll work, compared to they're
Right.
going, okay, one of us is going to do it. This is the thing we need to do it with.
Well, to the point where she creepily says, you won't need preservation. You'll have me.
Me?
I'm just like,
I don't think we want you as Preservation, ma'am. No, thank you.
The one thing I might say, just because I'm trying to think of counter arguments to that,
yeah.
is that they also clearly the original 16 ascended as well. They might know enough from that original 16 to know this will work, but I do agree that it seems unlikely to me that in all the time from the Shattering to then that there wasn't at least one transfer of sharddom before the things that went down on Scadrial.
Well, especially when you've got Race going around trying to kill
Yeah.
all the other shards.
It just feels like somewhere someone would have
Changed it up.
changed it up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a very interesting, because that's a very interesting choice of words. The first who ascended. Not those who ascended, but the first. And it's just sort of an indication that there's multiple people. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if she is just referring to the Lord Ruler. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll accept that. But I feel like there's more to it than that.
Well, especially given that Silverlight exists as a city, which, by the way, the name of the city in Oathbringer was Celebrant. Celebrant was the name of the city.
Oh, okay.
Which also adds more questions.
That sounds like an elf name.
Yeah.
There's
that, yeah.
because there's Celebrimbor.
Well, I don't know.
And Celebron. Isn't that he's an elf, I think he
I
is.
think so. Yeah.
I think it's
I
a
thought he was
wine.
married to Galadriel.
Celebron. A nice
right, Jordan.
white.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes.
No,
Totally off topic.
but no, because Silverlight exists at this time frame, we know because Chris is there, therefore Silverlight has to exist because that's where Chris was trained to do all this world hopping stuff. There has to be some sort of greater understanding of how investiture and all this stuff works. You have to have something to go off of. What better thing to go off of than big events?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where it's just like there's something to it. I don't know what, but we tend to learn from big events. Like the reason people start mapping the cosmos is they see stuff going on in the sky. The reason we start learning about thermodynamics is because there's fire in a big one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And big events tend to lead to study. And so something happened, people were studying, and they've got to get this knowledge from somewhere. And it makes sense to me that one of the shards might have been a bit too giving of things.
The reason we start studying quantum physics is because we watched Ant-Man.
Yes, clearly.
And so, anyway.
I'd like to shove in the moment that I took quantum physics as part of my degree, and I got an A minus in my first semester of quantum physics. Don't ask what I got in the second semester. Let's not.
But I did
focus
have a
on that.
follow-up question. Oh.
What's your follow-up question, Bill?
Well, I've been told not to ask my follow-up question, so I can't
Don't.
ask
Yes,
it
again.
now.
Don't ask. Don't point out what the second semester was. The point is,
okay.
I took it. I got an A minus in it, and that's all anyone needs to know. Because I want to make myself sound as smart as possible with as little information that I can give.
Yeah, see, Bruce, just show, not tell.
Look over here, not over here.
Yes.
Do you know why I always won card games as a kid?
You didn't.
Oh, dang it. It's an excellent point, actually.
I'm not
We
picking
played-
the card you're giving me, Jordan.
We played Go Fish with my in-laws and my kids, and my 4-year-old was hilarious on when he was teaming up with the grandparents, and he would be like, "Oh, I have this card," and they're like, "No, don't tell." So yeah, playing with 4-year-olds card games, it's hilarious.
You're saying they don't have a very good poker face?
Oh, no poker face, no poker face.
Oh boy.
So yeah. Anyway.
No, the other thing that's interesting about the question of if other people have ascended is obviously we don't know a lot of the circumstances around a lot of these other planets, but if someone else ascended, you would think it would require a somewhat similar situation as maybe sort of happened here on this world, where there has to be a reason someone needs to ascend to take this power. So either it's they somehow forced it, which are like, okay, how could you force it? Well, somehow 16 people shattered at Analsium, so to do the same, to force out 1/16 of Analsium is an achievable task, I would assume.
Still a big deal, but not
Yeah.
as hard as doing it for 16
And
shards.
so, do you do it by stealing it? Do you do it because one of them laid down their lives, similar to how Preservation did, and someone else has to take it up? Can one of them get sick of doing it and retire and find a way to transfer it to someone else? I don't know. But it's one of those things, I didn't consider that a question before that little nugget.
That's true.
But I don't know. What were some of the other things we were looking at?
There was the Hemalurgy table, but we already talked about that.
Oh, some of the retcons that have come since this
Okay.
book. Dang it, you
Where I
had
didn't
that
see those,
somewhere.
but-
Where did I put the push show notes? They were somewhere.
The retcons. I didn't see them.
Oh, we had the retcon of what Hoid was up to in Well of
Oh,
Ascension.
right. Yeah, so basically, I mean, do you want to talk about that, or actually, I'll
Start talking about it. I'll find the word of Brandon
'Kay.
you had for it.
Well, it's in the show notes.
Yeah.
So, but essentially, when he wrote the Well of Ascension, when Hoid shows up, people, Brandon mentioned he knew what Hoid had been up to in Terrace, and supposedly what he was doing in Terrace was looking for the Well of Ascension. Well, now with Secret History, he had to kind of retcon that. Fortunately, it wasn't anything that happened on screen, so he could retcon it and it works. But he had to retcon that because after Kelsier had destroyed the Pits of Hathsin, we had Hoid coming back to Scadrial through the Well of Ascension during the events of the Well of Ascension.
Yeah.
Which means that he wouldn't have been up there, because that's actually how he got to Scadrial, for him to be there in the first place. But he still has ideas of what's going on and what he's doing up there and stuff like that. But that was originally what he was supposed to do.
Oh, that's right. Pulling up the word of Brandon, I forgot the people were asking him that very question.
Yeah.
And the funny part is, if you read through it, Brandon can't remember what the new explanation is.
Right. He's like, we'll have to ask Peter. Peter will tell you.
No one's
Got
ever
a lot to keep straight.
No one's ever followed him up on that, as far as I can tell.
Well, that was actually a recent word of Brandon, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, was that?
No. I'm mixing up words of Brandon that I've read. So
this one was in
the
Oathbringer London signing. No, that November 28th of 2017.
So
Fairly
a little
recently.
over a year ago.
All I know is apparently the bookstore this was in was called Forbidden Planet, and that sounds hardcore. That sounds way cooler than Barnes & Noble.
That's the next expansion in the Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert, and Forbidden Sky.
That is the
of
logical progression, isn't it? Then after that, logical solar system or Forbidden
Galaxy.
Yeah. Okay.
No, the other thing that was retconned that was interesting, and I kind of wish he hadn't had to, but it does make sense, is the scene when Sazed and Marsh are fighting, having that epic battle.
Oh yeah.
At one point, Sazed hears a thought in his head of those weren't coins that in that bag that Marsh just pushed at you, that just shot at you, because they were his little rings.
So then he had
his
power.
metal mines.
And originally that was actually supposed to be Kelsier giving him that thought. But at that point, Kelsier is trapped in the Well of Ascension still, and he couldn't really do that. And so he had to retcon that. And basically he just said, no, that was just Sazed's thought. Okay.
Well, I do think
works.
I think he left it a little more open than that. But he has to leave it as it could just be that.
Well, he said there was possibly something else.
Yeah. Well, but my thought is it could be preservation.
But he has said it wasn't Kel.
Yeah. It could be preservation. Because while preservation can't remember his plan, it's clear Sazed is sort of the culmination of the plan. And a piece of preservation may have remembered that part of the plan.
Or at least remembered that these people are important.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is there was another word of Brandon where he essentially said, it was basically just his thoughts. So it like there's a possibility that he might go in and make it canonically something else, but officially, like, that's sort of where he is right now. He's just like, no, that's his imagination, essentially.
Or observation or whatever,
It was Sazed's own thought that he heard. He's like, wait a minute, he just pushed something at me. Those weren't coins.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because honestly, Kel doesn't have to be at every point pulling all the strings.
Yeah,
so.
But I want him there, pulling all the strings. But no, it just wouldn't make sense. No, the other one that was interesting was very recent, involved the Hemalurgy table. Was the fact that the spikes that existed before couldn't be the spikes that existed before.
What do you mean?
So, the leather-bound version of Hero of Ages actually has slightly different text.
That's right. He tweaked something.
Well, because I'd have to pull it up, but I believe gold spikes now steal ferrochemical. What was it? think it's hybrid. I can't remember. Whatever quadrant gold is in. Basically, gold spikes can steal the gold healing powers of Furukami, and he had to change one of the spikes that was in. Like when they saw the Steel Inquisitor, he had a gold spike in him now, which because before he tried to say pewter was stealing it because gold was in a specific quadrant, but that quadrant got messed up because Brandon messed up
it was
what
backwards.
Brast
That's
is,
right.
and so it couldn't be that spike, and so he had to retcon it. That said, how horrifying is a golden spike? Like,
Well, it won't tarnish.
no, it won't. But that's sort of what makes it so horrifying. Is this thing is incredibly valuable. Like, imagine you're fighting a Steel Inquisitor. You don't understand anything about Hemalurgy, but you see one of these spikes is made out of pure gold. You know there's a reason it's pure gold. You just don't know why.
Yeah.
That's true. That would be really weird reading it. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's just it adds to the very well, especially if you're used to fighting them and all they have are these dark metal spikes, because all the other spikes are iron, steel, and so the various shades of gray and black, and then that looks important. I don't know why, but it clearly matters.
Yeah, especially because to us, gold is
Quite valuable.
like gold is like it. Well, the thing is, in just about every series, gold has some importance.
Well, that's one of the things in
And if there's
Alloy of Law with gold compounding. Part of the reason they have to do so much stealing the Vanishers do is because of his gold compounding. Because he makes mention how he is very expensive to have around. Because he's constantly burning money. He's literally burning money.
Making it rain, sort of. Except just burning.
Yeah, well, he's not constantly burning it. He's only occasionally burning it. And then
Well-
he's storing it.
I mean, he does a lot of things that necessitate him burning it.
Oh, yes.
Like, he unnecessarily jumps off of, 3-story rises, lands, has bones re-knit as, the microfractures
As they're
go,
breaking.
But the
just
thing
to
is,
make an entrance.
The thing is, part of that comes from basically being able to supercharge a ferrochemical
Yeah.
battery.
Yeah.
Because, for example, the Lord Ruler isn't constantly burning adium.
Correct.
Because, but he has a whole bunch of youth stored up because he stores it and then burns that. So it's not that he's constantly burning it, but he still is burning it more than a lot of people. So,
And it's gold.
Yeah.
and it is gold, which is the main currency, which is what boxings were made of. So,
Yeah. So it's just
Also,
one of those things that's an interesting retcon that had to happen. And at the same time, you're just like, wow, that does somehow add.
I just had an interesting thought. What would preservation have thought of Miles? Because he loved
Well preserved,
exactly.
Yeah.
but he's not
we
permanent.
we saw how he geeked out about the Lord Ruler. Well, we don't know how permanent he would have been had he not been beaten.
I do. So it doesn't grant immortality. That's something people have asked that, and I think it was clarified. It might be in the RPG book, and Brandon sort of confirmed it. How it doesn't. It softens the effects of aging, but it doesn't stop aging, and so
Okay.
it
So we
gets
don't-
harder and harder to heal the older you get.
Okay.
And so you would have to use more of a ferrochemical charge to heal the same wound the older you get. And eventually you run into the same problem as the the Lord Ruler in Adium.
So you end up with Old Man Logan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, that's not a bad thing.
True.
Because that was really good.
But super depressing still.
That was great. Don't worry about it. Wrong spoilers. Wrong spoilers.
Yep. So,
Anyway.
yeah. So I mean, anything else that y'all want to talk about? We're going to do a sort of last words in a little bit, but is there anything else that we should talk about before we start wrapping up.
Oh, what
I think we covered most of it. Should I go grab the thing, Bill?
Yeah, go get the thing.
Okay, I'll be back in a sec.
Guys, there's a thing.
There was one thing we didn't touch on, and that was when Kelsier comes back with the orb, he touches Hoid's soul, and it zaps him.
Yes! Well, does it zap him or does it freeze him or something? It's chill.
I feel like...
It's like a frost or something.
I'm trying to remember... In my head, my memory, which is horribly faulty, I seem to recall Hoid looks at Kelsier.
No, I think he actually specifically doesn't look at Kelsier.
I'm going to have to go back and look. I thought, to me, it seemed like it didn't happen immediately. Like it was a response. Like either Hoid saw him or felt him or...
I don't think so.
I
don't think so. My memory is just as faulty.
Yeah.
So I could be wrong on that. But I think he specifically didn't look at him. Like I think it says he didn't look at him. But Kelsier felt this just something.
Yeah, he somehow has some sort of bug zapper.
Yeah, and Brandon has been very, very tight-lipped about that.
You know what it might be?
Yeah.
So, in the IRE, Kelsier tripped their cognitive shadow alarm for things coming from Threnody. Mm-hmm. We know... Could it be something with Silver?
It could.
Silver repels cognitive shadows on Threnody.
Yeah.
Right.
It might be
it's
something
possible.
with Silver. I don't. It just came to me right now.
It's possible, or it could be something else entirely. Though.
Yeah, I don't.
Because the thing is, again, I don't remember Hoid reacting any specifically at all. And when cognitive shadows touch Silver, there's definitely a reaction.
But that's also because cognitive shadows in Threnody are manifest
in the
physical
manifest
realm.
in the physical realm. That's true.
And so I don't. Yeah, it's one of those. Obviously, we don't have enough details, but just that occurred to me that is sort of a bug zapper type reaction.
That's true. The crackling and blackening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sold on that though.
Yeah, I mean, there's not enough information to sell anything, but it's just an idea.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and start wrapping up. As always, we love to thank our patrons because y'all are the ones who make it possible for us to keep making new episodes of the show. Of course, the show is going to continue to be free for everybody, but if you want to help us out, you want to support us, even if you want to just give us $1 or $2 per episode, go to patreon.com/CosmereStudies. By becoming a patron, you help support the show, but you also will get a few bonuses. You'll get immediate access to our Discord channel. We've got some fun conversations going on there. You can also continue the discussions about the Cosmere, about the episodes, about the show itself. And you'll get bonus content like the 6-7, which is a collection of 7 pieces of content that we find for each episode, and we want to share it with you. It's something we find, we like, and we say, hey, the
what a
Sixers
wonderful
like
time
this.
to play.
And get along with each other?
Yes. Good. You got the reference.
Yes, I got the reference to Arthur, Jordan.
I'm going to take a satisfying
Anyway.
sip.
Beyond that, our patrons are automatically entered into our giveaways. These giveaways are not exclusive to our patrons, and they're free to enter, but our patrons are entered automatically. And speaking of those giveaways, guys, we are back doing giveaways again. We've crossed the threshold, and so we've actually got something to give away this time. So, Amy, would you care to...
Okay, this is our prototype. I just pulled it off the printer. That's what I went to go get. It's a little book holder thing. Anyway, I feel like I need to tweak it still. But
What's
that's
the
our
other side
symbol.
look like?
It's just plain.
Okay.
But I could make it that, but it would take a lot more cleanup, so this is easier for everybody.
Can you show them how it works?
I will try. This is kind of hard. So I grabbed a big old book, and you can just set it in there. You get the plain side, and you can use it to hold it open or slide it. I need to tweak it slightly, but
so that it doesn't close up
flop or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to explain on the audio side, but it's sort of diamond
So we'll put
shaped.
a picture. Yeah, it's like a really stretched out diamond, on two of the ends, and I need to tweak it slightly still. But we'll put a picture up on the social media of it.
But it's not just a book holder. It's got the
Our
SICS logo on it. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. So I'll put it up again if you can see the video. Anyway.
So
right
if you want to, we'll put up a post probably on Wednesday. I think is when we're going to try and get that up.
Yeah. I'll hopefully have a better version by then.
By Wednesday, if
Wednesday,
we,
yes.
So we'll, sometime before Wednesday evening, we'll have a post up, and just as usual, we'll put up the rules on how to enter on, and those are going to be up on our social media accounts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So if you want to make sure to not miss out on that, keep an eye on our accounts in the next couple of days, and you'll see a post.
But yeah,
and you think we can probably do that one international because it's pretty small. If we wanted to, what do you think?
That should probably be doable.
But yeah,
it's pretty light.
The reason we went with this is we were trying to think of something that actually sort of applied to what we did, and we're like, wait a minute, books.
We could do book holder.
Scads of books, mountains of books.
Well, and I'd seen other people printing them. It's like, well, okay, so how do we make it ours? And maybe we'll still tweak the design. Maybe we have to have a hole through it. We'll figure it out what we have to do.
Well, yeah, we'll tweak it. This was our first try at it, and it's
so that's the prototype.
Yeah.
And so, but obviously we didn't make it here in September. By the time that we'll be ready, it'll be February. So we're probably gonna have to do a double giveaway in February because we reached the goal in January.
Yeah,
you said September, so we.
I said September.
You said September.
I was like,
Samsonite, I was way off.
Not even close.
Like that doesn't even make sense.
What's he talking about? I don't know.
It's a
It doesn't even rhyme with September. Like September makes sense. What's he doing? He's clearly drunk. What's in that cup that he took a self-satisfied drink of?
Very long day, yes.
He's drunk on his satisfaction. Oh,
indeed. Let's just drink again.
So anyway, we were gonna try and do two, or I could easily print two once I have it designed.
Cool. So what we'll do is we'll actually pick two winners from this giveaway.
Okay.
And we'll send two of them out this time. So yay, awesome.
Yay.
And of course, also by being a patron, you help us to continue to make the show and improve the quality. As we get more patrons, we're going to be able to record episodes more frequently. We will be able to invest in even better equipment to improve not just the audio quality, because now you get to hear the sweet dulcet tones of our voices without, as much audio feedback and horrible soundingness.
Yes.
But hopefully we'll be able
cranked up really high.
Cosmere flavor on SICS.
Oh my gosh, I want a radio station with the call sign SICS now. That's amazing. Anyway.
I'm trying to figure out some sort of, what their frequency is involving a 16, but I can't quite figure out what the next two digits are.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, so, yeah, that you help us out, and it improves the quality for our listeners. Now, we want to thank specific listeners from time to time, and this time we'd like to thank Sam K. Thank you. Y'all are amazing. And we want to thank you all. And because of y'all, we're able to keep making more and more episodes. So, yay. Now, I think we do have time for an email this time. So, from time to time, we do get questions about the Cosmere and other topics. And we like to address them during the show when we can. This week, we've got another question from Josh that was applicable to today's discussion. I'll read it. He says, "Hey guys, I've got a minor thought, but it's something I really want to know more about. If you remember, in the Lord Ruler's chamber, there was an old flute, likely Rashek's from his time as a young man before his ascension. I'm very, very curious to know if that flute is the same one Hoid gave to Kaladin, which of course he then left in Sadius's war camp when moving to Dalinar's. So, what do y'all think? This is an interesting theory.
Did Hoid say anything about the flute when he gave it to Kaladin?
I don't remember him saying anything specific. I know that he's attached to it. It was one that's important to him because he was ticked at Kaladin for losing it.
I could have sworn he made some mention of perfect pitch, but
he did have perfect pitch. But that was the clue.
Hoid saying that he had it, or if it was
Hoid was saying that he had it.
Okay.
Because he was saying it was new, because that was his indication that he had achieved that heightening from
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
from Warbreaker.
That he
Okay,
from Knowledge.
so I just
Perfect
looked
pitch.
it up on the Coppermind, and there's a short thing. It's called Trailman's Flute.
Okay.
Used by storytellers to aid in the telling of stories. Hoid uses one to tell Kaladin the story of Darethil and the Wandersail. He then gives the flute to Kaladin, who leaves it in Bridge 4 barracks in Sadius's war camp before it being presumably looted/destroyed during the Everstorm. Then the next bit is stuff I don't remember at all. Toril Sadius found it and had it in his possession before his death, and Hoid wants it back. It may be, and then this is the part that gets even weirder, it may be related to Meridus Amaram's collection of flutes?
Amaram has a collection of flutes?
I don't remember this detail at all.
These people have secret lives I know nothing about. Nothing.
Wait a minute. Okay, let's...
Now, Sadie is finding it. I'm betting that's a word of Brandon. Somebody asked him a question at a signing.
Let's see.
And
these things have been sourced, so...
Now, that said, a trailman's flute, the term would fit because Reshek was a packman.
Oh. Godless Rebel pointed out that Shallan, when she was infiltrating his house, that she must have seen flutes.
Okay, so the first one, where is Hoid's flute and does he want it back? Brandon Sanderson's. Sadius had it, yes. And then the second one, by someone named, I'm going to say Smee07. My question to you is this. I got the heebie-jeebies when Shallan heard about Amaram's collection of flutes within just a few pages of Wit bringing up the flute the Kaladin lost. All I can think of is that, A, Wit's flute ended up among Amaram's collection to resurface later, or B, in his work with the Sons of Honor, Amaram or his fellows have stumbled upon some flute-related magic or splinterization, and his flutes are the brethren and sisters of Wit's flute. Is either of these the case, or is there some other significance to Amaram's collection of nigh-forbidden flutes? It is significant. It's not a huge deal, but it is significant.
What?
Okay.
What?
What's the difference between significant but not a big deal?
An interesting tidbit is more what
Bill,
it feels
you have a
to me
degree
like
in English. This is clearly your expertise.
I have a degree in English, too, I'd like to point out.
Oh, well then both of you better have an answer.
My only thought is that it's something that someone would find interesting, but it does not have a great effect on the plot.
Right. I think that's kind of what it is.
That's
The
what it
other
feels like
thing-
to me.
Well, the other thing is, what were Hoid's apprentices referred to? Were they were the world
World
singers,
singers, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wonder if that has something like there is. I've heard a little bit about this whole music theory behind the Cosmere, and I think there's something to it. I don't know that it's as big as a lot of people are talking about because Silmarillion, like a lot of origin myths, deal with music, but it's just.
Sorry, I just found a word of Brandon that relates to this, and this is someone asked that exact question. Is the flute that Vin saw the same one as the one Hoid gives to Kaladin? And he responds with, Raffo! Read and find out. The origins of the flute will be revealed at some point, so it's clearly significant.
Okay, so that is significant.
Is it a big deal is the question.
Because that's the thing. Brandon gives out a lot of Raffos. Every so often he'll say, that is something that you will learn. And so we know that there's a little bit more information coming. So I'm interested in finding out what
Where did the flute go?
what the flute is.
All I know is the biggest reveal of this is that I need to pay more attention when Shallan's sneaking around people's rooms, because I'm finding out details that I didn't know existed.
Got to keep inventory when she sees things. Okay, well, there was this.
Yeah, next time I'm doing it with like note cards.
Well, because there was a bunch of stuff that she saw when she went and met with
Mraze.
Bird dude. What's his name?
Mraze.
Yeah, Mraze. Because there were like ties to like there were flowers in a jar that people are saying are probably tears of Edgeley and all sorts of stuff.
What are you talking about? Mraze is just a collector. What's significant about him? Pay no attention to the bird on his shoulder that's probably from
chicken.
Dust.
The chicken.
They're all
It's
chickens. Because they're
Every
horribly
bird is a
birdist.
chicken. Because they're not native to Roshar.
So they're all chickens.
Anyway, All right, so yeah, that's our answer, Josh. Thanks for writing. We appreciate hearing from you. If any of our other listeners have questions or feedback for us, we would love to hear it from you as well. Let us know what has stood out to you, what you think of the show, what your favorite moments have been, what books you're most looking forward to, basically just write us. We love hearing from you. If you have any questions, if you have any comments that you want us to discuss, just let us know. You can reach us at cosmerestudies@gmail.com, and hopefully we'll even read your question and discuss it during a future episode. Now, of course, we each have our own projects outside of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. Amy, why don't you go ahead and lead us off this time? Tell us about you.
So, I'm on most social media things. I'm on Facebook at Coincident Cosplay and Props, on Twitter at CoincidenceCosp, because my name is too long, and on Instagram at coincidence_cosplay. I can totally speak English. Anyway, but I am so close to being done with my Hufflepuff robe.
Nice.
And I finally broke out my serger, so I can surge things, but it still scares me.
I'm sorry. What is a serger?
A serger is
it has
is
nothing
machine.
to do with surge binding.
Look, I just need to make sure, okay? Because if she can do surge binding, and she's been holding out on us, I'm going to be pissed.
It does have to do with binding.
It does. It's just fabric only.
Okay,
but like on the inside of quick explanation, on the inside of your shirts or pants or whatever, like that nice solid seam where it has lots of thread to keep it nice and solid, that is surged. So compared to just a straight line down.
I'm now imagining a conversation between Brandon and one of his friends or his wife or somebody, and that's the origin of the term surge binding.
Different spelling, but I could see it.
I would not be surprised if that's where it came
from.
So
Surgers they're scary to thread because there's 4 threads and it's anyway. But that was my big Christmas gift, and I've finally worked up the nerve to work with it this weekend. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. Hufflepuff. Woo!
Very nice. All right, Jordan, how about you?
Well, I haven't done anything as cool as made Hufflepuff robes or surge bind, but we did last week do our VR play of the Escape the Shattered Plains. I apologize, I haven't gotten it up on YouTube yet, but that will be coming shortly. I've just been juggling a lot of things recently. But the video is, at the time of recording, still available on twitch.tv/splicestream. If you just click on videos at the top, it'll be in the history. And then we played some Beat Saber afterwards because who doesn't like playing lightsaber Rock Band?
Yes.
Spoiler alert, he murders a Kremling.
Oh my goodness, I so murdered a Kremling. I took Stormlight, shoved it into the Kremling, pointed up, and then let go, and I was quite pleased with myself.
Send it to the sky to die.
Let's fly.
That one doesn't live in the Krim anymore.
No, it
doesn't live anywhere anymore.
But, then I saw, in all seriousness, though, for those who just I'm not going to go watch it, I really implore you to watch it. It's clearly not canon, what happens in that VR game. It's more, it's better described as trying to give someone a feel for what Way of Kings was about. That said, I got up close and personal with a Chasm Fiend. And
those things are nasty.
Oh my goodness, was it's a little freaky. It actually is. And it's a good thing too, because it's clear that they put all their budget into the Chasm Fiend.
Not into the parchment animation.
It turns out not the parchment. What's the
Parshendi?
The Parshendi. The Parshendi do seem to have maybe a little lower animation budget, but to me that's not a bug. That's a feature. The bug is the Chasm Fiend and the Chull that just has no concept of personal space. Frankly,
the Chull was your buddy. Anyway.
Seriously, go check it out. Twitch.tv/splicestream. Just click the videos button. It was a fun little romp. And actually, the voice actress they got for Syl sounded what I sort of imagined Syl to sound like.
She did a good job. I thought they did a great job with Syl. Now, as for myself, when I'm not here, I should say I'm writing board game reviews over at the Innkeeper's Table. I'm falling behind. I'm trying to fix that soon. I apologize for that. But I still have a bunch of reviews up over there, so if you want to go check those out, it's www.innkeeperstable.com. I am really hoping to get my review of Terra Mystica up sometime this week or before the next episode, but I'm working on it, guys. I'm sorry. But in the meantime, you can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at InnkeepersTable. Now, if you've enjoyed the show, we would love it if you'd head over to iTunes, give us a 5-star review. It makes a big difference in bringing in new listener. It makes us look good. It makes us feel good. So, and next to becoming a patron, it's the best way that you can support the show. And of course, make sure to share the show with other people that you know who also enjoy Brandon Sanderson. Before we close the episode, guys, do y'all have any final thoughts before we move on from Scadrial? And move on from Scadrial for the rest of the season, honestly, because that's the last book we have there.
I'm going to make this glow. I'm going to work on it. That's my thing. So, yeah.
For the audio-only listeners, she is holding up her orb.
My orb!
I think we talked about that before the show. I don't know that you talked about it on
Yeah, she did.
No, I did.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I was when Jordan went off the deep end looking at something, and then I talked.
That's right. I was thinking it was...
Thank you for specifying which time Jordan went off the deep end. I do feel like it was going to be... Everyone's like, oh, geez, come on. We need an annotated list. No. My final thoughts... For me, this is kind of depressing because Scadrial is my biggest love, frankly, in all literature. It's my favorite world to visit. And if we ever did get that Mistborn video game, I would play the crap out of it, even if it was bad, just to be in the world of Scadrial.
I would love it if it looked like Assassin's Creed. Like, I haven't ever played it, but just watching clips and stuff like that would be...
After playing
cool.
Spider-Man, I want Insomniac to make it. I want him to make it so bad.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that, but I imagine it's pretty good.
If they can nail
really
pushes and pulls the way they nailed web slinging, that would definitely make it worth it.
Yeah.
But no, Scadrial's amazing. The magic systems are incredible. It's so well thought out, and I thought the coolest thing Brandon could do with it was move it into the Wild West the way he did, and then he wrote Secret History, removed all the magic systems for all intents and purposes from the story, and the characters were still compelling, the story was still compelling, and yet he still packed in so many more questions than answers that made it truly deserving of the name Secret History.
And again, this is a project he was working on for 10 years. And I actually was looking through, he mentioned it in the State of the Sanderson when he was working on it. He's like, now guys, I was able to finish up a secret project that I've been working on for 10 years. I'm just like, I remember reading that and being like, what? What? And now we know.
Mm-hmm.
So, I want Secret History 2 and 3.
And 7.
He's also talked about other novellas for even other worlds that aren't necessarily in the cognitive realm, but they're from other people's perspectives. He said it's something he kind of likes, but also he kind of wants to stay away from. He made a comparison to Ender's Shadow, where it's a story that you already know, but from a different perspective. And he likes it, but he said that in some ways it kind of cheapens some of the main characters of the main character when there's somebody else pulling the strings. But that said, you can still have behind the scenes looks and stuff.
If he can do more stories that are along the lines of this and Hope of Elantris, I think was another one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Stories like that they don't so much they fill in gaps or tell a story not from a different perspective, but from a side of an event that just wasn't even a thing.
It's like,
that happened, but it wasn't focused on.
Yeah.
it's like making a movie that's comprised entirely of deleted scenes.
Yeah. Or, you know what? It's actually a lot like the interludes from the Stormlight Archive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he wanted to delve into interludes from other books, I mean, first of all, no one who listens to this podcast or anything Cosmere related is going to complain about more stuff from Brandon. But
Fair enough.
I like the concept of revisiting these worlds, especially maybe some of the smaller worlds. Like, I would love a Secret History Warbreaker. You know, something from...
Oh, that would be
maybe something that gives us some more information on the Pawn Call, or, you know, things like that.
They didn't
where
get much screen
it
time.
mattered, but it just didn't have time to be focused on at all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Six of the Dusk Part 2.
Godless Rebel mentioned Six of the Dusk Part 2. I'm like, would that be Seventh of the Dusk? Or no, no, that's a different person. Anyway. The other thing that I had something in my head and it went away. Oh, right. Anyway, in addition to the live episodes of the show that we stream on twitch.tv/Innkeeper's Table every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, our listeners can also find videos on YouTube, where they can find audio versions of the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Talk, or Google Play. Not Google Talk, that's a different service. Google Play, and just about any other service that carries fine podcast listening. Just do a search for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us and contact us through Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all with the profile name @Cosmere Studies on each of those. Now, for our next episode, we are finally going to be heading back to Cell to discuss Bill's, meaning my, favorite book that Brandon has written, The Emperor's Soul. So join us in 2 weeks on February 4th at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at www.twitch.tv/Innkeeper's Table. In the meantime, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember, there's always another secret.